you, Sadaf. This is Omar. And when you ask me to introduce myself, it's kind of telling me to say your identity. And this is probably the core of this presentation. Well, I don't know where to start, but let me start with the most common thing, the circle that we all share here, which is Carter School. I'm master's degree students at Carter School, father of two children. I'm Iraqi American. I have two citizenships, and I was born in Baghdad, and glad to be here with you.
Okay, thank you all for your all introductions. And now we'll be giving individual presentations on different subtopics. First, Omar will deliver his presentation. Please, Omar.
Thank you, Hannibal. Well, in my part, I will talk about patriotism versus nationalism. Right now in the United States of America, there's a big debate about two terms that reflects huge meanings that could determine the shape of the United States. I want as a country to share something that I see as essential here, which is that both nationalism and patriotism have the same meaning in Arabic and the same word in so many examples, which is wataniya in Arabic. Now, however, they have less meanings in other. Began with declaring Iraq as a nation state in 1921. Back then, the first king of the new kingdom of the Britain, or that the Britain decided to name Iraq, the Kurds are live in the world. They believe in the Kurdish nation. For that reason, they have been involved during the past decades in violent struggles, not just in Iraq, even in Turkey, Syria, Iran, and other parts. And right after 2003, the American invasion to Iraq, they held two non-binding referendums for independence. And in both cases, the majority goes with the independence. We are talking here about more than 90% of Kurds where they voted. Which circle is more affected us than the other? Back to, let's just talk about Iraq. Back to 50s, the classification, economic classification was really essential thing, especially, with the rise of communism around the world. So back then, yes, if you are poor, most of poor people, they just go to join the Communist Party and they start to, educate about equality, economic equality, these things. And they, arrange themselves, they make their cells, and they try to get to rule the country. So yes, I would say in some cases, the economies, it's also part of our identity. If you are rich in Iraq, maybe the way that you think about the problems, political problems, religious problems, is totally different if you are poor. I read a lot about the civil wars, and including even in Iraq. Whenever there is poverty, we should expect more extremism.
Omar
And if there is
presentation was that actually
terrorism.
he was seeing the danger in so many parts of the world, but familiar with his own background in Iraq, of putting so much emphasis on one ethnic group and one nation. So, Omar, do you see I believe the question is, what are the risks you see in both patriotism and nationalism?
Well,
Do you
back
see
to
risks in both?
yes, it's the narrative. Well, my grandfather was born in Iraq during the Ottoman Empire, sorry. So back then, he used it to chant for the Sultan, Abdul Hamid al-Thani. And my dad, when he was a kid, Iraqi state justice has been established. And he used to chant for the kings. And when I was born during Saddam Hussein time, I must, back to the question, what do you call it in English? Your economic situation would actually draw the line for your future in country like Iraq.
Thanks. When your status is comfortable, it affects the way you would think about change.
It affects also the way that you educate yourself. Where are you gonna go to study, and who's gonna, who's gonna be your friend? If you are poor, and back in 1990, when the United States actually and the United Nations decided to enforce embargo on Iraq, most of Iraqis, being just found themselves having not enough to have
That
food.
is very
Most
promising.
of you,
Omar, there's a
since they don't have
question
money.
here. If I could turn back to you, that is it possible that one person's patriotism could be a nationalism to another person? It makes me think that it's still, those two concepts are still hard for people to understand. Like, so could you elaborate a little more about the promise of patriotism versus nationalism to really strengthen the clarity of what those two terms mean?
Well, I would come with an example of the United States of America. Let's talk about what happened on January 6th. If you ask the people who they just did the riots, why they did that thing, they would say because we love the nation, we love America, we want to make America great again. But is that patriotism? This is the question, and I would say this question would answer the question of is patriotism could be nationalism to another person? Yes, for me, if you think this is patriotism,
So there's a
I would say
mindset
no.
that you're
This is not.
implying there's a real difference in the mindset in that nationalism is much more linked to there's an identity that it is rooted in and a loyalty to an identity that is more closed. It's a more closed system of what you expect the features and the qualities of your country to be. It's much more tribal than, pardon me?
Like white supremacy, professor,
Yes.
white supremacy in the United States. People maybe they just go with this because from their perspective, this is patriotism. But the question is
They use
this
the word patriotism. Right. Okay. So patriotism is actually a concept that's much more inclusive of a variety, a diversity of different nations. Right. And there's a unity that's a loyalty that really relates to the opportunities and the structures that provide the opportunities and the fairness, the law. So there's definitely an emotional connection with patriotism, but it really has to be. Omar and Sadaf, it's really an honor to listen to you and I have so much respect for you and so much hope for the future when I listen to you and the depth of your thinking at this stage in your lives. So the future is yours, and I really appreciate the insights that you shared with us today. So all the best to you and everyone who joined us. I really appreciate you joining us, and thank you for taking the time. It's really wonderful that you came here on a Friday afternoon. That's very impressive. Okay, goodbye, everyone.